Welcome to the Six Hats podcast, where I, Dr. Shami, a lifestyle and nutritional medicine family doctor, will talk about how women strive to find balance each day by juggling their six roles, being a woman, mother, daughter, partner, business owner, and professional. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Six Hats podcast. And today I'm excited to have Gaby back with us. Now, she's my amazing personal trainer. She's an amazing personal trainer based in Melbourne. For those who haven't listened to her previous podcast, you must. She really inspires women to get back into training. So today's podcast was actually inspired by one of my patients. So quite a few patients, when I discuss the benefits of strength training, building muscle mass, how especially it's important, not only for weight loss, for mental health, for bone strength, for a multitude of factors. Sometimes they feel a bit intimidated to how do you start? Do I need to go to a gym? There's so many questions which stop them from moving forwards. So I invited Gaby back to dive into these areas. So welcome back, Gaby.
Thank you for having me again, Dr. Shami.
Amazing. So Gaby, it's interesting, isn't it, when we chatted? Well, you see clients on a different journey. They may have already tried, done a bit of training and want to go to a different level. And we just had a interesting conversation of, wow, what happens when you haven't done any exercise for years? Gym is very foreign. Weights actually sound quite confronting. It sounds scary. Like, where do I even begin? So that's where I love to take this conversation.
Absolutely. I think that it's such a great conversation to have because a lot of people haven't been in the gym before or they haven't actually done weight training. And I think the misconception is that it's daunting, it's scary, they're going to injure themselves, they don't know where to start. So I think that it's really important to actually break it down and sort of go through the basics of how to start, where to start, and who to contact or how to get that support initially. And if you're thinking about like where to actually start as a basic sort of foundation and going to the real basics of it, is that you need to set goals for yourself. So that's probably the first place to start, is actually think, okay, what are my goals? Is it to build muscle? Is it to build strength? Is it to lose weight? Is it to improve my athletic performance? Is it to improve bone density? What is actually the reason that's sort of leading you to this conversation in the first place, or to have these thoughts? And then the second sort of point of call would be to get clearance from a medical practitioner if there are limitations to your physical ability and capacity. So whether that's seeing a physiotherapist or a GP, or working, with a physical therapist to start with, depending on your individual circumstances. And then obviously everyone is so different. So I think it depends on thinking about what actually works best for you and what situation that might be, your financial capacity, your limitation from a time perspective, and then again, looking at those goals that you have and how that sort of fits into your everyday schedule and routine. And from there, it's about, building, I guess, like starting from scratch. It's really about building that proper technique and form and then creating a routine.
Amazing. So if I one of my common presentations, which is actually perimenopause, menopausal woman may not have exercised for years, has got a desk-based job, so sitting for 8 to 10 hours a day, probably highly stressed, multitude of roles, so busy as well. So kids, busy life at home,
Yes.
work. And most of the time they come for weight loss. And that's when I really approach the subject of building muscle mass, because we
Correct.
lose it from the age of 30. Muscle mass regulates your sugar. It's an easy one to actually create proper glucose regulation.
Correct.
And you don't need to do it for hours in a week. You can actually start very short periods of time and short bursts.
Absolutely.
So if we take a case like that, what would you say to this?
Absolutely. I would say probably where to start is actually getting clearance to begin with. And then I would be looking at actually engaging with the personal trainer. So finding someone to work hands-on with and even committing to doing one session a week with them so that you are accountable to yourself and to them with making that appointment, just like you would make any other appointment, whether it's a medical appointment, to see your accountant or whatever it might be. And that way it keeps you accountable, but it also teaches you the foundations of technique and proper form, and also makes you feel more confident in the gym, comfortable, and understanding of what you're actually doing to start with as a basic foundation.
I love that. And when I do say, sometimes it's just once a week, more often than not, people go, "Oh, I can do that."
Absolutely. It's attainable.
Absolutely, because I think the images that they may have in mind is 3 to 4 times a week, half an hour, 45 minutes, and not many people have that. But I did
Correct.
say that's literally how I started.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been in the gym multiple times in the past. I lost enthusiasm for it. I found it a bit boring, but then I thought, actually, I don't actually know what I'm doing, and I don't know where I am. I know where I wanna get to, and for me, it was all about strength and longevity and wellness and maintenance of weight, for sure. And so that's
absolutely.
why I sort of approached you. And what I realized on this journey is I didn't have to do the thinking, which was so crucial for me because I do a ton of thinking
Yeah,
a week. And number two, priority was fun. So we have so much fun.
absolutely. It needs to be enjoyable. That's another big factor to consider.
Absolutely. And then I just scheduled it. I scheduled it in 7 in the morning on a Friday. Great. Done, ticked, and the rest of the day starts. It's not like
Absolutely.
go out of the way to find it. Plus, I made it easy. So the gym is only 5 minutes away from me. So there's so many factors to consider. But what would you say the top key factors after they've got the clearance? They are saying, right, you know what? I am actually going to do this for weight. They've signed up with a personal trainer. What are the factors help them stay motivated?
So once you've assessed and affirmed your goals with your personal trainer and you've got consistency happening there where you're getting into the gym once a week and you're working with them and you're enjoying the process, it's really about setting some small goals with them. It might not be anything drastic. It might not be a number on the scales or, like from a weight or fat loss perspective or a goal, like more of a tangible, longer term goal. But the small goals are really good in helping you stay accountable to the process and actually enjoying being in the gym. So it might be, increasing the weight every couple of weeks that you started from. I know that we've done that together along the way. And it makes you feel so proud of yourself and it gives you that self satisfaction and you feel really empowered in the moment. And those little goals, it could be working towards a pull up or it might be working towards something like doing a push up eventually. And you modify that and you build on that every week and you get stronger and stronger. But those physical goals, albeit quite small, they're actually quite profound and actually make the biggest impact on how you feel about yourself in the gym, but also achieving the longer term goal as well. Those little goals are all what adds up to the longer term goal
I
and the
think
bigger
what you mentioned
goals.
is really important. And I always say, when we're starting a new habit, just check in and see how you feel. Because when you check in, you go, wow, I feel so much better, clearer mind, great start to the day. I feel happier because of course it's all those endorphins, but also increases serotonin. And when you check in, you go, my God, that's what I want to feel every day. So it sort of inspires you to get back to the
It
gym because some of the
does.
barriers could be time, it's too hot, too cold, raining. That's
So many things.
so many
You
things
could
in
find
there.
any excuse under the sun if you
Yeah.
if
But then
you
I
wanted
and
to.
so I always say, just go back and check in. How did that make you feel? And if it felt fantastic, you want to do it. You want more
Absolutely.
of it.
Yes.
I love how we sort of approach the topic of how do we start strength training. And a key message I want to kind of put across is it starts slow and it starts low. It's not
Yes.
about carrying 30, 40 kilos. It's about starting with two. What would you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the most key thing to focus on is not trying to get overwhelmed by the noise of the gym and what you assume or that sort of misconception that you might have about how much weight you have to lift and how many exercises you have to do and how much of a time commitment you have to make to it. It's just bringing it right back to basics and saying, you know what, I'm just going to go once a week. I'm committing to myself. If you're working with a PT as your starting point, or you've got a buddy that you work with, or, even just starting with some home exercises and following an app or whatever it might be. But it's just about starting with the very basic foundations, doing what's appropriate for you as an individual and what your capacity is from a physical perspective, and then building and layering slowly as you work your way through it. It doesn't have to be complicated and it doesn't have to take up a lot of time, but it's just about starting. And I think that's the biggest thing. But what I think is probably the hardest part with that is that accountability perspective. And that's where I find most people need that support to start with. If they don't have someone to be accountable to, then it's really hard to sort of to actually get progression happening or even just get started in the first place.
Amazing. You mentioned something really cool, home exercises.
Yeah.
What would you suggest?
So realistically with home, like that's actually a really great place to start. If you are really starting from a basic foundation where you don't have much strength or you haven't really done much exercise before, doing body weight workouts at home can be a really good place to start. And then once you feel a bit more confident, you can actually sort of go, oh, well, I feel that I have a bit of strength now. I could probably go to the gym and start using some heavier weights, or I might actually employ a personal trainer because I want to push myself a bit more and I actually want to improve my strength and fitness levels. But there's so many things these days that you could really utilize. I mean, YouTube itself has a lot of sort of workouts. If it was like a cost restraint sort of issue, if you even wanted to pay a little bit of money, there's apps that you can download where you can follow like a body weight home workout. And there's some good trainers that have some, actually like some really good apps out there that have good form and technique explained and examples of. So there's lots of different approaches to that you could consider as a starting point. And they don't even require equipment. You could just do that from home. Even 15, 20 minutes is enough to start with. And as I said, you could just build and layer from there as you needed to or as you had the capacity to do so.
Amazing, amazing. So what kind of exercises could you do from home? Because I always say to patients, when you do an exercise, you're going against gravity. So example, if you've got the escalator and stair, take the stairs.
Yes.
Doing squats, even like raising your arms above your head, anything against gravity will build muscle strength. And that's actually a great place to start. How would you?
Yeah, I would just be focusing on really just functional movement. So
Mm.
functional movements is about movements that we do in our everyday activity or moving around, mobilizing. So it might be a step up on a step. You might have some stairs in your house. You might want to use those. You might have a small back step that you could do some step ups on and off. Body weight squats, things like that. Even during COVID, this is actually a funny story for you, but obviously, we were all at home and I started doing some Zoom group classes for all of my clients so that we could have a bit of community and some camaraderie and connect with each other online, but also keep active and keep doing our, exercises. But a lot of people didn't have any equipment at home. So we actually utilized things that were around the house, like kitchen, like bags of rice and cans of beans and sauces. And we were actually using those as weights and doing, overhead press or some bicep curls or just even holding the rice bag as weight for squats and stuff like that. There's actually a lot that you can do from home. It's just like you obviously have to be a little bit creative with it, but those functional movements and just utilizing things that you have available to you works really well. You don't have to make it too complicated, but it's just those basic movements like pushing overhead or pulling something, you could use like a light band if you had one, like you can get those from the physio or even from Rebel Sport and do some basic pull movements. As I said, using some light weight that you have around the house for some tricep extensions, things like that. It's really basic functional movements, but you can actually do a lot from home as a foundation to start with.
Amazing, amazing. And what would you say for someone who sits for about 8 to 10 hours at work? There's
Mm.
always an opportunity for movement, even during that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Lots of strategies that I sort of suggest to clients that I coach is if you're sitting down and sedentary for like quite a prolonged time of the day, there's either options where you can set yourself every 45 minutes to an hour to get up and go for a walk around the office, or even just if you're at home and you're working from home, a walk around the block just to get some fresh air and to move your legs and to get some vitamin D as well. Like that's always really helpful. The other thing actually that is available to us these days, which I think is a fantastic tool, is a walking pad. So you can,
Oh, cool.
yeah, I'll have a lot of clients that utilize them. And so essentially, if you're working from home, you can set up your laptop on a desk that's sort of at chest height, and you place the walking pad underneath you, and you can do your steps while you're actually working away.
Really?
So there's ways that you can, yeah, it's a fantastic tool. I mean, that's only a recent thing that's come on the market, but I think it's amazing and so helpful for people that do have very sedentary jobs, and particularly who are doing long hours. But again, I think the biggest point is, if you are in a sedentary role, the most important thing that you can do for yourself is allocating and scheduling in time to exercise. It doesn't have to be long. It could be before work, it could be part of your lunch break, it could be after work, but even just setting aside half an hour to either go for a walk or just do some body weight movements is enough, really, just to start with.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah,
When someone's starting, so you've got this sort of lower weights, you're starting smaller, shorter period of time. I love how you mentioned functional. I think that's actually very easy when you think about it in your mind. You go, right, I can take the stairs, I can do some squats while the dinner's on. There's so many areas that you can start implementing if you haven't moved for years. I think that's a great place to start. And then you suddenly gain your confidence, find a personal trainer that you really like, enjoy. And I think a couple of factors: what are your priorities? What are your values? So is it fun? Is it, you want to get it out of the way in the beginning of the day, or do you want to do it on your day off? Just finding a time that you find
correct.
enjoyable,
Yes, yeah,
so is that you actually want to do it. And
yeah,
it's those initial barriers, because we create this image in our mind that it's tough, it's difficult, it's not fun. So, putting a great podcast on, putting your best favorite music on, there's so many strategies to get you moving. But I think the ultimate message is to move. That's what I'm hearing.
absolutely. You just have to move. And there's so many ways that you can do that. But I just think, instead of making it, I think that's where people go wrong a lot of the time, or they lose motivation with it, is that they think they have to be so extreme in their approach. And they think, okay, I need to go on a diet, I need to lose weight, and I need to start exercising. So they bite off more than they can chew, essentially. And they go, okay, I'm going to do 4 sessions a week, and I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to sign up for a membership, and I'm going to get there every day, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it becomes all too overwhelming too quickly, and it's too much for us, especially if you haven't been doing any of those sort of foundational basic things, like, you're focusing on your nutrition or your walking or your exercise. Then going from 0 to 100 is often just not sustainable longer term. And that's where it really has to be sort of an incremental approach and staggered. And that's what I always, again, say to my clients when they first start with me, is like, we're not going to do everything all at once. I'm going to build you up to a certain point. So we're going to start with these 2 things for this week, and then we'll build up from there next week, as you have the mental capacity and the time capacity and the energy to do that, And so it's just really about the very small basics, moving your body and just starting somewhere.
I love it. Love it. What a great message to end on as well. Just to start moving. It's fun, it's exciting, it's enjoyable. And then you actually see the changes in your mind and body over time.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Amazing.
right.
Thank you so much for your time today, Gabby. And where can people find you?
Thank you so much. So I've got my website, which is allegrahealthandfitness.com.au, and I'm on Instagram as Glutes by Gab, which everyone has a little bit of a chuckle about.
I love that. It's so inspiring, Gabby. You do strength training during pregnancy, post
Yeah.
baby. Oh my God, delivery. That's amazing. It's inspiring.
I love it. And I think the benefits of strength training are so profound and important through every phase of your life. And it makes, if you're looking at my situation currently as sort of an example, it's made my recovery so much better. I feel physically really able and fit, and it helped me to have a natural birth. And, I think no matter what the season of life that you're in, it's really important to have a strong body. It helps you have a stronger mind. And I think that's what I try and, I guess, inspire people with. So, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you.
Remember that this is general advice only. Please see your healthcare professional for more information. So what's your take-home message today? Remember, it's all about progress and not perfection. And are you suffering from stress? Visit the Usawa Learning Hub on usawa.com.au for more resources on how to de-stress, re-energize, and reclaim your health. Enjoy the journey.